What's up? What's up? What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Why Jesus podcast, answering life's most important question. We are on episode number 22. I'm here with my guest, Mike Stibs. Mike, how are you doing today, brother?
I'm doing fantastic, John. Thank you for having me on.
It's my pleasure. So, you were one of the first people who interviewed me about my whole Santeria thing, and that interview caused so many people to want to find out more about Santeria, and it helped illuminate this subject to people. And that Santeria talk is kind of fringy when we think about Christian theology and different religions. That's kind of a religion and a fringe topic, right? Which I think is becoming more mainstream because people are becoming more aware of Santeria. But I wanted to bring you on because this is a subject, not Santeria, but like fringe topics under Christianity and viewing fringe topics through the Christian worldview is something that you do very well. You articulate it very well. You present arguments very well. And you are way more knowledgeable on this stuff than I am. So, we really, really, really wanted to have you on here to discuss that stuff. But before we do any of that, first want to know how did you come to Christ? What is your salvation story?
Yeah, so I'll give you like a very quick rundown, and I'll even throw the fringe element right in there so people can kind of know how I got into this. But yeah, I kind of was have the cliche rock star growing up near Los Angeles kind of story. I was playing in a band from the time I was like 14 to like 27. Got extremely addicted to opiates, cocaine, and my life was falling apart. And God just showed up in my truck one day as I was driving to work to go bartend, and really just never looked back. And so I have a lot of stuff on my YouTube channel about the testimony, so I won't go into that super deep. But John, I used to be before I was saved, I was into aliens a lot, the alien topic, UFOs, and everything that's connected to that. When I got saved, it didn't take me any time to figure out like, hey, look, I'm not bringing those beliefs with me into my Christian walk. Okay. But 6 months in to my Christian walk, God brings a young man across my path who was also addicted to drugs at the time, but he had a life-altering experience with the UFO, and he was asking me about it. Like, dude, I just don't know what happened. And it seemed to have altered his life. And so from that day on, that would have been back in 2011 when this guy came across my path. And I did a little bit of research because I didn't know what to tell him. I didn't want to just say, well, that doesn't exist, because dude, I believed in it. And now I'm sitting on the couch talking to this dude. I'm a little bit convicted on what I know from before, and then now what I know on the other side of being saved. And so a long story concise right there is I ended up doing some research. I came back to him. The dude ends up getting saved, whatever, hallelujah. But something's going on out there, but it's not necessarily what we think. So yeah, man, it's the fringe Christian world. It's scary. It's hard to navigate. And the thing that I care about most are the new Christians that do have these legit questions, but need to find a legit answer and not coming from somebody who is speculating, because we can speculate all we want, but that's not gospel. So
yeah, it's very interesting because the topic of aliens is something that it makes people question Christianity all the time. They're like, oh yeah, well, what about aliens? I'll be in conversation and I'm like, are you ready for what I think aliens are? Like that's my response. And then we get into, some topics we'll discuss today. But these are legit questions. These are not like questions that people are just like, oh yeah, well, what about aliens? Like, no, they're genuine. Hey, how does this type of stuff fit under the Christian worldview? I believe Christianity is true, but I look and I see that there's evidence for this other stuff that could kind of shake my foundation. How do we filter that? And so I guess that's it. Let's jump right into it. And I know that the video is lagging, but the audio is doing perfectly fine. So we'll just rock with it. So let's talk about what are some fringe topics in Christianity.
Okay, so the number one fringe topic that Christians get made fun of in the secular realm is flat Earth. Okay,
Oh yeah.
so that's a fringe topic. I am not a flat earther, so just everybody take a deep breath, because that just brings up some fights online. Another one that's been popping out recently is now this is super fringe, but it's the Satan's seed doctrine, where there are people that have doctorates in theology are coming out and saying that Satan had sex with Eve, and that Satan is the father of Cain and Abel. Okay, and it's pretty easy to debunk if you just read the scripture. But they go in and if you're not prepared for some of this stuff, John, it's like you'll listen to it and like the people can be articulate and they've got Bible verses that seemingly would back it up to a non-discerning ear, i.e. like a newer Christian. Like if I was a brand new Christian and I heard that, I wouldn't know what to think and I might have believed it, and then you've got the craziest one as of late. And in my circle, this gets a lot of people mad because they can't believe I don't believe in it. But there's a theory that aliens are abducting humans and making hybrid aliens/humans, and the end game is to debase human DNA so that we can't be saved, right? And it's like it's so out there. And it's like, I'm in these circles, but at the same time, like I'm looking to Jesus first and foremost about everything. And like, you've got to get me to believe something, like you have to be coherent. So when I hear somebody start laying out their case, like I got this verse and that verse and this verse, like right away, because I know the scriptures, right away, I'm like, no. That's not the intent. That's not the context. You're fitting something into your narrative, and it does fit the way that you're saying it does. But, a lot of us, unfortunately, like, especially now, as we live in an echo chamber where, we put something out like that, and then we just hear positive feedback come from Facebook, YouTube, whatever. And then if it's negative, we just delete it. And so we're only listening to people that are agreeing with us. And dude, that's dangerous, man, because I got to be teachable. I got to be ready to change my viewpoint and opinion based on number one, the word of God, and number two, based on evidence that's unfolding as time goes, and so there's the term fringe Christianity. To me, it's scary because on one end, you've got somebody like Mike Heiser, who is coherent from A to Z. And then you've got other people, and I'm not going to name the people on the other end, that are not coherent. And it's very, very easy to poke holes in some of their research. And it's not research. What it is it's speculation. And I'm okay with speculating. I think we just need to be careful with our language. like saying, hey, look, it's a possibility that this might happen based on evidence that we see. And that's kind of where I like to fall. I like to get crazy sometimes, but if I'm not preaching Jesus, then I'm off the mark, and I can't release a video if it doesn't lead people back to Jesus.
Yeah, that's a whole fact. It's got to come back to Jesus, and we can be interested in these things. Like we can definitely, you know, look to these things and say, wow, that is some fascinating information you have just given me. Let me look into that. And it can also be exciting to kind of go down these rabbit holes of conspiracy theories and everything, especially if you're like me. I'm a rabbit hole go downer. I don't know if that's what you would call it, but I like to if you tell me something, I'm going to check it out, right? Like I'm digging in on it. And it's funny you bring up Dr. Michael Heiser. You know, he was somebody that I was really hoping to meet one day, but you know, we will in the next life, but I meant in this specific life. But I watched a video of him talking about aliens and how it fits into the biblical worldview. And he was somebody that I was like, wow, that actually makes a lot of sense, you know? And then when I read, I read about light speed, like traveling beyond the speed of light, and how in traveling beyond the speed of light, it's impossible for a physical being to do it, right? So how do these aliens get from the other side of the galaxy to Earth physically? You know, if they'd have to travel beyond the speed of light, they would essentially disintegrate. You know, they would just disappear, right? So then when you get into them being interdimensional, it's like, wait a minute, that kind of sounds spiritual in a way, you know, and then it like illuminates and you're like, wow, that kind of makes sense. But anyway, I'm going down a rabbit hole already. So what are some of because that was crazy what you just said. I want to stay on that topic for a second. So people are saying that aliens are, and this is not just people, Christians are saying that aliens are abducting people, creating people-alien hybrids, so that way our DNA is changed and we can't be saved. We cannot make it into heaven, essentially.
Right. Yeah. So the group of people that are saying that, like what they're positing is that if that they could change us so we're no longer human, then we're not, you know, we don't qualify for salvation. And so when I look at that, and like when I first hear something like that, like, you know, I'm sorry, but I'm not like one of these dudes that wants it to be real. You know what I mean? Like I want it to be not real first, because that sounds super scary.
Yeah.
But when I'm listening to somebody say that, what am I looking for? You know, I'm looking for coherency and I'm looking for evidence. And because you say that you're a Christian, you know what I'm saying? I'm super looking for corroborating scriptures that back that up. And you can't, like I said, again, with me specifically, you can't just throw like a Revelation verse out there about the locust coming up from the bottomless pit and then throw it into your theory, because I know the context of that stuff. You know what I'm saying? And it's weirder than we think, but it's not something that I could just read, right, without having any context and understand it. And that's what a lot of people are doing, is they're not going further into the story before they're coming out and writing a book or making a video on it. Because when I hear it, I'm like, no, dude, like you just don't even, that's not what the scripture is even saying, like not even close. And that's where for that stuff, like I refer to Heiser on that, because I'm like, dude, that dude spent time in college reading those texts and getting into it and reading the text of the culture around it. So he understands the puns, he understands the references. And for instance, John, like in 500 years from now, if we go on that long, right? If I have a writing or I have a video where I'm talking about American Idol, right? Somebody 500 years or 1,000 years into the future, they hear me say American Idol. You know what I'm saying? They may not understand that the show, I'm talking about the show, and then they can make an inference like, oh my gosh, the Americans worshiped this thing called the American Idol, right? And so we need to understand the context and the references that are made in the Bible so we can understand what is being addressed. And most of the time, especially in Revelation, what's being addressed is New Age thinking that was happening at the time. And so it was through that lens of apologetics. John, the writer, was writing, people that believed in, many, many gods and stuff, and believed that, there was a pantheon and all that type of stuff. And so when we understand that, we have a deeper meaning. And guess what, dude? Then we can't be fooled by someone who just makes a compelling video or something.
Yeah, and also we have to take into consideration that sensationalism sells. People, they get this idea, they write a book, they sell it, boom, they make a whole bunch of money, they do a whole bunch of interviews, and then they're on to the next thing. It's like I said, it's so interesting, even if it's nonsense, right? I mean, why do people like Marvel movies? Like, I love Marvel movies. It's 100% like not real. It's not real, but I will have a whole hour-long conversation with one of my friends about like some theory that we think is going to happen in the next 12 movies that they got laid out. And we're like debating on these theories, and it's so interesting, even though it's all nonsense, like it has no, there's no foundation in it, Kevin Feige is the god of that universe. What he says goes. Doesn't matter how many theories me and you come up with. It's over, right? So let's dig into some fringe topics that you discuss on your channel. Camp, I'm gonna say this wrong. Camp Herman, right?
Correct. Camp Herman, it's a reference to Mount Herman, where the fallen angels fell to.
I know. I always call it Herman because I worked in a deli with this guy named Herman, and it's like a mental block. I just cannot say Herman because I feel like I'm saying his name wrong.
Right.
Because I know Mike Heiser has a book that has that in the title, and I would say it wrong all the time. So my apologies. But yeah, I just want you to know why. If you ever hear me say it incorrectly, you could blame the deli guy.
Well, it's all good. We had a dude that made a rap for the podcast. And he talks about, he rhymes it as Mount Herman because it rhymes with sermon. So he says like, this ain't a sermon. Welcome to Camp Herman. And it's all good because it's a really good song anyway.
Yeah, take it.
You could pronounce it Herman. I think our mascot is actually Hermie. But yeah, that's another story.
So I'm hitting the mute button because the dogs keep barking. But so walk us through some of the more the topics that you guys discuss, and then let's dig into them from a biblical worldview. I know we don't have all the time in the world, but let's talk about some of these fringe topics that people actually want answers to.
Right. So, I think it's appropriate given the news that's going on right now. Just a couple of weeks ago, David Grush from the U.S. Navy, works for the Pentagon, whistleblower, coming out saying that he's saying this, that there's absolutely crashed UFOs that the government has possession of. And then something that was piggybacked on top of that was this Vegas UFO sighting, which I actually took a break from making a video on that because there's some conspiracy theories that are dropping about the Vegas alien. And it's like, I have to just tell people, like, don't believe it, because it's very, very clear that there's a fake video going around, but there's even a Christian guy that's claiming that it's real. But we can get into that, and we could go into the biblical perspective. So I think that the alien topic would be the way to go, given, this impending quote unquote disclosure. And so, John, what I would like you to do maybe is if you could just ask me specific questions about like disclosure or the alien topic, because your audience a little bit better than I do. And then you could kind of, I'll be able to go from there and really give you a lot of info. Also a Christian perspective, which is why we're here.
Definitely. So let's say somebody is just a baby Christian with all of these questions, and you need to give them a 7th grade answer to how do aliens fit in a Christian worldview.
Yeah, so that's awesome. So the idea of something being extraterrestrial, not human, not of this earth, the Bible definitely corroborates a worldview for that. And so Genesis 6:4 tells the very interesting story of the sons of God going into the daughters of men. Let's say it in 7th grade education. Fallen angels having sex with humans. Okay, and there's a book that is very, very much biblically endorsed. It's not canon, but it's biblically endorsed, meaning the Bible quotes it many, many times, and that's the book of Enoch. And the book of Enoch tells the story of the fallen angels, and pretty much gives us that worldview. And so extraterrestrial, demonic, fallen angel, all of those terms seem to be kind of, synonyms, even though that theologically speaking, they're very different, but understanding that they preside, as Mike Heiser would say, in the unseen realm, in a different dimension. And so the Bible definitely tells us that God did create other beings. And let's just say you don't believe Genesis 6:4. You just want to throw that out. I'm down with that. Cool, right? There's still angels, right? They're extraterrestrial. They're not human. They don't live on Earth. And so right there, we do see evidence for the Bible corroborating other beings.
Definitely. And that's, it piggies back from what we were discussing earlier, how extraterrestrial, we have this ET image, or like little gray dudes with, big eyes that are physical beings, right? That we think flew in from, the Andromeda Galaxy. I'm making names up, from Guardians of the Galaxy, all the way over to here. And then, they're abducting people, and these are physical beings, right? But that, I would say, would not fit into a Christian worldview, like a physical being from another planet. But I would think an interdimensional, and when we think of interdimensional, somebody or something that can be outside of space, time, and matter, right? And in the spirit realm. What is outside of space, time, and matter? The spirit realm, So it's, when you start like peeling these layers back, you're like, wait a minute, this is pretty interesting. So now let's take it up a level, right? That's the basic, if we're going to say that aliens can fit in the Christian worldview, how do we differentiate this whole idea of them being from other planets and, from distances that maybe they travel through, like wormholes and stuff like that, to them not really being aliens in the way that we think, but them being interdimensional beings, and essentially them being spiritual beings?
Yeah, right. So that's an interesting one, because there seems to be, not seems to be, there's an obvious deception that's happening with these so-called aliens that are actually, people are claiming that are communicating with them. Okay. And so, for instance, there's a guy out there. His name is Stephen Greer. And I'll never call out Christians, but I'll call out secular people.
I know
But his
this
name is
guy.
Stephen Greer. Yeah, and he's Homer Simpson basically. But he claims that through transcendental meditation, he's contacting multiple alien civilizations. Okay. He's got an app for your phone that you could download the app. It gives you a protocol that you go through, and he promises contact with extraterrestrials through this protocol. And then obviously he'll caveat it and you'll get this, John, because it goes into even, the manifestation type of stuff. And then he'll caveat it with, well, if you don't contact them, you're just not doing it right. And you got to stick with it and keep doing it. And so he's saying that the extraterrestrials want to help us, right? Because he's talking to them as far as he's saying. And so they're lying to him, right? He's a prophet in the old sense of the term. He's speaking with these gods, these little g gods that are claiming to be whatever they think we're going to believe they are. And then he is relating that information to even politicians. The dude's got, he sounds like a crackpot, but he's got a platform in front of presidential advisors. He's been in front of Congress several times. He's buddy with many politicians, singers. Demi Lovato is a follower of Greer. That chick race car driver, Danica Patrick, is buddy with him and is talking about aliens coming to save planet Earth. And even speaking of American Idol, one of the guys, the rocker guy, Josh something, he also is speaking and throwing out the alien gospel that they're going to come and help us and save us. So
hold on. I'm sorry, but I gotta just pause you real quick. The fact that people think that if aliens actually existed, that they would be coming here to save us is bananas, right? Like, our whole entire world is the product of different groups of people colonizing other groups of people and fighting over land and taking resources and stuff. Like, this is what humans have been doing since all recorded history, right? Do you really think that if aliens from another planet came over here, saw all the resources that we had, they would be like, hey, we're gonna help these people? No way, not in a million years. So anyway, I just had to say how like illogical that kind of thinking is.
So John, that's great that you bring that up, because I've even heard Christians say something like this, and we just have to keep a discerning ear. But I heard a Christian say that, make an analogy back to when the Spanish invaded the Mexico area, and how they were the Mexicans, and they weren't Mexicans, so I'm sorry if I'm not using the correct language here, but the indigenous people of those days, they were afraid and they started war right away, right? And that's what they're kind of saying, like, hey, we need to be careful that we just don't start a war if we get invaded. And it was a Christian dude saying this. And I'm like, man, like, you've got like millions of views and people are liking it and commenting on it. Yeah, like, we Christians just don't understand, and there's totally alien life out there. And look, if God wanted to create alien life out there, cool. But if they are able to come here to this earth, that would have been something God would have obviously known, and I think he would have told us.
That's a fact. That is a fact.
Because it would be so paradigm shifting. Like, I just can't imagine a father just being like, yeah, we'll just kind of leave this one out, even though it's going to lead many of my people away from me ultimately, through that. I mean, it would just shift so much. And so, in the Christian community, we call it the alien deception for a reason. I think that there's a lot of possibilities. I think that the number one possibility, though, is if you are a Christian, you know the word, you're close to Holy Spirit, no matter what happens on this earth, like if we just happen to be in the end times, right? If we are, then Holy Spirit is going to lead and guide you into the truth and you won't be deceived. You know what I'm saying? I don't need, and forgive me, but I don't need somebody who wrote like a book based on a theory to save me from an alien deception. I got the Bible for that. You know what I mean?
Amen. And the whole like channeling thing, right? Like these guys that like Stephen Greer or Greer.
Greer.
Yeah. He like the fact that he's been chosen, right? Like he's chosen out of all 8 billion people on this planet to be the one that receives. And not only does he receive, but he can tell you. And I've never watched any of his stuff. I just know of him because people have told me, oh, no, you got to go check him out, blah, blah, blah. But if you just look at like Esther Hicks, right, who gets possessed by Abraham, these entities, like they possess these people and then just tell you basically everything that a life coach would tell you. You know, like this, just pay for the seminar, dude, and you can hear me tell this. I was looking at comments from his book, Stephen Greer's, because somebody sent me a link directly to his book, and somebody wrote a huge comment about how they used to follow him for years, and then they finally went to one of his actual events, like his seminars, and they just, after it, they were like, this dude is nonsense. He's like super arrogant, right? And talking down to his audience. And if you don't make contact, it's your fault. And all of the same unfalsifiable claims that the law of attraction does. Like, hey, if it's not working for you, it's your fault. It's not the law of attraction's fault. Like, you're so special, dude. So special that this alien nation has chosen you to be the ambassador to, the ambassador of the United States. Some just random guy that does seminars. Yeah, that's the one that they're gonna pick, right? So I know I'm going on a tangent, but this stuff is it.
Well, John, it really, the fact that people do buy into this stuff, I'm kind of excited that some people are, because it shows that they're open-minded about the spiritual stuff.
True.
Right. And maybe if they're open-minded enough, maybe I could come in and with the knowledge that I have within that subject, come in and say, hey, look, have you ever thought about it from this angle? Have you ever thought about why Jesus says that he's the name above all names? Right. It's just, we don't understand what he's saying in why God's saying that. I'm going to make him the name above all names. Well, what God was saying with his son, Jesus Christ, is he's going to be ahead. He's in charge of all of these entities. They were made for him, by him, and because of him, and he has preeminence over them. Okay, I'm kind of rephrasing Colossians there. So the Bible says that. And so whoever these aliens are that Stephen Greer or whoever says that they're claiming to be talking to through transcendental meditation, that those are obviously, demonic influenced things that they may be having, or it's possible that they're just psychopath liars. But I'll give Greer the benefit of the doubt and say he is hearing from somebody, right? But it's not extraterrestrials that are going to come and make sure we have McDonald's and movies forever, right? To keep us going, right? No, they are lying to him. And then in return, he's a prophet and he's going out and lying to everybody else. And he's got his own little clique. But the whole fact that he's got like a platform for politicians, it just freaks me out, because we just don't really understand some of these politicians of who they're around and what they believe. It's just crazy, bro. I mean, like, yeah, it just gets on my nerves.
Yeah. And so politicians, to me, we look at our politicians as if they're somehow smarter, better, more prestigious, all that. I look at them in the complete opposite direction. I think there are a few of them that are politicians because they want to, they want to change things, they want to do right. But most of them are politicians to just be politicians. It's a good gig for them, right? So I'm not surprised that he gets a platform with some of these people. Have we paid attention to these people at all? Like we elect people like AOC, not to like throw her under the bus, but like anybody can hear the things that she's saying and be like, yeah, this chick got some things backwards, and I'm not saying that from like, oh, that chick's stupid, but like her mentality is dangerous and delusional, like just
Right.
absolutely delusional. And these are the people that we put in office, right? Or for me, there's another one, and I just want to make sure that I mention people on both sides, so that way they don't think I'm crazy. But it's like I forget her name, but like Mary Taylor Greene or something like that, like equating Trump with Jesus, And I'm just like, these are the people that are voted in. Of course, they're gonna give a seat to somebody like Stephen Greer, who's like, hey man, I'm in contact with aliens. Can they vote? Because I'll sit down with them. It's.
Bro. Yeah, bring them in, man, because they'll vote left.
Open the world borders, open the world borders. But anyway, man, we're straight off topic. So let's bring it back. So what would, if you were trying to have this conversation with somebody and explain to them how this could be something demonic, right? And this is not ETs trying to save the world or anything, what would equate, even if you convince them that, all right, maybe ETs, maybe aliens are interdimensional, maybe they are spiritual beings, but, Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light. So people will be confused, like in the New Age, the Anunnaki and all of this stuff. They think that these are benevolent, like good beings that want to just help you. How do we get them to understand that this is demonic and it's not something good for them to be contacting or listening to people that they're contacting?
Yeah, great question. I'll start by saying this. So first off, in light of disclosure, because I want to address this so people can understand kind of like where I stand with this. So when we're looking in the news and we see like David Grush coming out and saying that he's a whistleblower, right? And then taking that topic and that news report, and then if I want to marry that into my Christian worldview, now what do I have to do, right? I've got to say that demons or fallen angels, whatever you want to call them, okay, it's not about theology, I'm just saying whatever you want to call them, did they really crash here if I'm trying to work that into my Christian narrative, right? So let me be clear on this before we move on. The disclosure stuff that we're seeing, it's very, very easy to poke holes into. Even George Knapp, Jeremy Corbell, great guys. I think that they offer a lot to that community, but there's a lot of times where there's big gaps of coherency in what those movements are saying. And with this guy that came out recently, David Grush, it's all over the news. There are some huge incoherencies. And the main thing is he saw nothing. He only heard from third party. And so we need to understand, because a lot of the Christians will take the whole alien narrative and then marry it to disclosure and thinking it's one thing, when probably, and I don't know this for a fact, but I'm just based on probability, it's a government psyop deception. I've got many videos and many theories on that are possibilities, but just based on just probability alone, that is probably what's happening. And there's even, whistleblowers that have come out saying that. So when we talk, so when we talk about how is this demonic, right? So we're married, if we marry that together, it's a different story. But if I'm sitting there, and this goes into kind of the Santeria thing, right? If I'm sitting there and I'm doing some sort of ritual, aka a meditation, aka protocol, like Stephen Greer, and I'm contacting these entities, there's a probability that they're going to come eventually and they're going to lie to you. Okay. And you'll know that they're lying to you. Well, maybe you won't, but Christians shouldn't be doing it anyway. But you saw it with Santeria that over the period, you just knew there was a deception there, right? And we get drawn into this stuff. So Stephen Greer and his protocol are exactly the same thing that Aleister Crowley talked about. Aleister Crowley, he is the pretty much the guy that wrote the New Age book. I mean, a lot of the theories come from him, and then obviously a lot before him, but he's the one that brought it into America, into pop culture. You know, the Beatles, Michael Jackson referenced Aleister Crowley all the time, but he had something called the Lamb statement, and it taught you how to access this being, this class of beings actually called Lamb. And Lamb, if you break down that word, means, guess what? The way and the truth. It's crazy. They're liars. They're just, they want us to believe that they're God, right? You go into the ancient alien theory, and that's basically what they're positing is that these aliens are our creators. And so they want to take the place of God. And they're kind of doing a good job in the secular realm, you know?
Yeah, even Richard Dawkins has said something along the lines of, you know, when I forget who it was interviewing him about the origin of life, and he said, you know, I don't know, maybe a comet or something from another planet came here, and that's what sparked us. And it's like, man, you guys, just anything but God, right? Just anything but the God of the Bible. That's it. You just got to come up with something else, right? But that just also begs the question, well, then who created the aliens? You know, we go to an infinite regress of who created that? Well, then who created that? Well, then who created, you know, we do that thing. But it's very interesting that you brought Aleister Crowley into it, because I mentioned him in my book, and I was speaking about how there's a quote from, dang, the name's on the tip of my tongue, but the quote says that, you know, essentially what Picasso did for art, what Beethoven did for music, and I'm paraphrasing, Crowley did for the mystic arts. You know, and this guy is essentially him, Helena Blavatsky, and people like that. They're the foundation of Western mysticism and New Age spirituality, and they're all credited to that. And then you look at Anton LaVey, who says, you know, the head of the Satanic Church, right? When he was alive, he wrote the Satanic Bible, Satanic Rituals. He wrote all of that stuff. He says that New Age spirituality is just playing the devil's game without invoking his name, right? So his infernal name, what he says. So it's interesting that you bring Aleister Crowley into it, because the whole contacting extraterrestrials, the system that they use to kind of do this stuff, like a Stephen Greer, is just New Age spirituality. That's essentially what they're doing. They're using New Age spirituality and spiritual practices that is rooted in Satanism to contact these beings that are saying that they're aliens, and then they're sitting down with politicians. Isn't it crazy how everything ties back?
It is because, you know, there's even so many connections, like within the secret doctrine, the secret, to the same, to this, like you're saying, the same people, Aleister Crowley, Helena Blavatsky, Alice Bailey. They all believed in this manifestation type of stuff, AKA word of faith, right? It's just repackaged. Yep. And they also believe in these other entities. So there's lots of connections. And It's really weird, but that's sometimes how people get deceived. They get deceived by coming in through something that seems empowering. This is great. I can manifest. I could do this. I'm the creator of my universe. And it's empowering because life is hard. We're disempowered half the time. Most of us work for a boss that's a jerk, probably, right? And to know that I can manifest something, that sounds good. But we come down into this world and then we get all kinds of weird deceptions, meet all kinds of weird people that'll take us down crazy paths, and it's just, man, that's why I just feel like, John, like somebody like you, somebody like me, like if somebody comes across our path, this might sound a little bit arrogant, but when somebody comes across my path, I want to make sure that the encounter is special. Like something happened in that encounter, like Jesus does something through me to a person, because so many people out there are getting deceived by stuff like this. It's coming back full force. I even heard a stat, and this is just me pulling it out of the air, but it seems true that the ancient alien religion is actually the fastest growing worldview right now, amongst like millennials and Gen Z, because it sounds coherent when we watch the History Channel, and there are people like you mentioned, Richard Dawkins, that are saying things very, very similar, and he's not the only one. There's actually, and I think this plays into the end time deception, but there's a lot of good evidence, if you weren't trained, that you can make that case. But at the end of the day, you're still speculating. And if there is a God, and I know there is because I know him, right? Then the fact that he's there, it makes all of that nonsense. And that's why, obviously, why would you want to discount God, right? So bad. But you want to say that aliens made us. That just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't sound logical.
And so on a surface level, for somebody, as you were saying, who, is not in tune spiritually, is not aware of what a relationship with Jesus Christ is like, is not aware of the reliability of the Bible and the New Testament, is not aware of these things on a surface level of, we definitely could have been created by aliens. Like you can rationalize it. You definitely can if you have a secular worldview and you're looking for a natural explanation for the origin of life, right? I mean, it still doesn't give you an answer to the beginning of the universe. It only can give you the answer to the origin of life on this planet, but then you go to the infinite regress, right? So if you don't think too deeply into it, it's rational. And the issue is most people don't think too deeply into anything. So I could have, even though I've never seen a stat, I could be persuaded to believe that this is the fastest growing religion. I definitely could be, especially, with it being popularized on like the History Channel and everything.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you look at Joe Rogan too. And so that's the way I think about it too. Like most people, like for instance, like most people that listen to Joe Rogan, right? They're driving to work, driving home from work, and they're just throwing that on because it's entertaining. And then you start hearing this alien stuff and their speculation, which is based on pretty much zero evidence half the time. Okay. And it starts becoming, you adopt that worldview unconsciously because you keep hearing it over and over again. I mean, Joe Rogan is the biggest podcast in the universe, and nobody's touching him. And he's talking about aliens all the time. He's got some crazy new age views that he doesn't realize because of people that he comes on and interviews and doesn't realize that they're rooted in I'm sorry, but it's Satanism. Like Graham Hancock, dude, the dude's rooted in Satanism. It's new age propaganda repackaged through this pseudoscience lens without God, without their, that's the thing that we can't have. Well, we could have a God, but we just can't have the God of the Bible, basically. So,
Yeah.
So even Joe Rogan's a victim of that because he's not aware of the origin of the belief systems of a lot of the people that he looks up to.
I think that eventually he's going to have somebody on there that is going to rock his world. That is just going to know the Bible and know the truth about all of the crazy fringe topics that he talks about, and is going to plant a seed, that I do think eventually, because he keeps ending up with people on his podcast that are Christians, and it's like he's more open to listening to them, but he's going to get one person on there that is just going to floor him.
You know who it would have been? You know who I'm going to say. But dude, Mike Heiser, dude, like I would have paid for his plane ticket to have Michael Heiser on that show.
Oh my gosh, definitely.
You know what I mean?
And that would have been, that would have been incredible. Absolutely incredible. But there's up and comers that are kicking butt, and are very knowledgeable in these things, and are rational Christians, and not just like, I believe in Jesus because I grew up in it, and really digging into this stuff. But anyway, man, let's get back on topic, because we're coming in for a close. So what are, without going down a crazy rabbit hole again, what are some other fringe topics that that you see Christians asking you questions about that you feel is a real simple answer through a biblical lens, but they may be just clouded with not understanding how it could be seen through a biblical lens?
Well, the New World Order kind of conspiracy stuff out there is one of those. I mean, that's definitely a crazy rabbit hole we can go down, but that's a simple one, okay, that we could talk about. With all the conspiracy theories of the New World Order, is it biblical? It's absolutely biblical. Is it happening right now? Maybe. We don't know that for sure. Okay. We can go and call Elon Musk the Antichrist and all of this stuff, but we're probably gonna be wrong. Okay. But there is a New World Order that's been forming since the beginning of time, and it's just a part of the world. It's inevitable that we end up being like that, and I just believe that that's what John in Revelation saw. He saw the world coming together. It's not like this round table of dudes sitting down going, wow, let's bring Satan in now. It's just it's like an inevitability that even if you took God out of the paradigm, you can never take God out of the paradigm, but it would still end up happening. And then there'd be some war that would break it up, and then we'd start all over again. It's just, that's how humanity seems to work, right? God just promises to intervene the next time that this happens, where we're about to destroy ourselves. And so the New World Order, some people go way, way, way off the grid on that. And I get it, but yes, they are trying to put microchips in our brain. Don't do it, right? Like I'm saying, don't do it. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that you're disqualified from salvation if you end up getting Elon Musk's chip, or if you end up getting the COVID shot, right? And I'm sorry I mentioned that, but that does not disqualify you from salvation. It's your heart, right? And so that's what concerns me, because there's a lot of nonsense out there that will tell you that you'll be disqualified. Somebody told me that I would be disqualified if I got the bang bang, right? I mean, come on, bro. I mean, yeah. I don't have it, but you don't know that. You don't have Bible to tell me that,
It's too far, like it's too far. I forget who it was. I interviewed Doreen Virtue. I think she said it. She's like, I believe all this stuff, but it's not like I sit here with my Bible over here and the newspaper right here and looking at every single event as like, this is it. This is the mark of the beast. This is that. But what's interesting about the New World Order, right? And this is just my conspiracy brain going off, bringing it back to Marvel. The Captain America 4 was supposed to be titled New World Order, and they changed it to, I think, Brand New World or something like that. And I was like, did they change this because they're actually trying to make a new world order, and that was just way too obvious? They didn't want it in our faces that much. That's my conspiracy brain.
Okay, so here's my conspiracy brain, because I have two different possibilities for that. Right now, did they call it Brave New World or Brand New World?
That's it. Brave New World. Yep, Brave New World.
So that's actually even more conspiracy minded when you get down to it. But there's a new KFC commercial. You seen that KFC commercial where the chick sits down with like this spicy chicken sandwich?
No, but I'm gonna definitely look it up after.
Okay. Yeah, and she's like possessed, right? And then this like satanic creature comes out from behind.
Because of Diablo, the video game.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. So there is this element that if companies do this, they know that people are going to be talking about it. They know that the Christian community is going to talk about it from that perspective, and it's just going to give them more press, right? The whole thing with I don't even remember, but it was maybe like a month or two ago. Like Ruslan was getting shade for drinking like a death water, and they were saying that he's possessed. I was like, dude, like if I'm a new Christian and I come across this, like I'm like, dude, I'm out, bro. Yeah. Like I don't want to be a part of this religion.
You psychos.
I mean, come on, dude. The dude's sitting there preaching the gospel, and you're getting on him because he's drinking a caffeinated beverage. I mean, come on, man. But there's this element that we're using stuff like that to get more attention. And I think that's what Marvel did. I don't think they were ever going to call it that. I think they just said they were going to call it that, and then say, oh, well, we changed it to a Brave New World, because that's actually even more conspiracy minded, because you look into the idea, the book, A Brave New World, is all about control and Big Brother, kind of like 1984 stuff. And so that's even more conspiracy minded.
Break that down for us real quick, because this is my first time hearing of it.
So yeah, there's a book that was written. I think it was, no, I could be wrong on this, but it's all still connected. It was written by one of the Huxley brothers. Okay. And they go back to the 40s and 50s. They were involved in eugenics, right? Kind of like Hitler was. They wanted humanity to go to the next level through our genetics. And they had all these theories and stuff about how we could be better as a human race. And they actually, one of them was one of the founders of Planned. Now I could be wrong on this, but he had something to do with Planned Parenthood. Okay. Because Planned Parenthood, at the essence of it, and now here I go into the conspiracy theories. They were started by people who wanted to weed out certain people in our community and wanted to weed out weaknesses within our community. Okay. And he got like a Nobel Peace Prize under the umbrella of Planned Parenthood for some of his genetics research that he did. It was a different world back in the 40s and 50s, especially a different America. And so there's a book, A Brave New World, that prophesies about how our future is going to be. And it's all like a system of control. There's like a quote from the guy that wrote the book, Huxley. And he said that the perfect type of slavery would be a form of slavery where people wouldn't even know that they're enslaved, and they're distracted by entertainment. And you're talking back in the 40s, this quote comes out. And you fast forward to today, it's a brave new world. It is. It totally is.
That's a fact.
Yeah, go check. Yeah. Check out the Huxleys.
Sorry, I didn't. It's like crazy because the video's lagging, and then I'm like trying to talk in the right places. But
no problem, man.
Yeah, that's insane though, and we are addicted to entertainment. It'll be so. I mean, look at me. I'm going to see the Flash movie tomorrow at 2 p.m. Well, I'm really going at that time because movie theaters out here in Puerto Rico get flooded if you go at a regular viewing time. But we are addicted to entertainment, and that is, I'm super interested to see what the plot will be now in the movie, to see if it lines up with that book. That would be really, really interesting, because they do like to tell us everything that they're planning, without telling us everything that they're planning. So anyway, that's another conspiracy we can get into another time. But we have, came to the end of our rope on this podcast, man. This was a lot of fun. And I mean, I knew it was going to be, because these are topics that are just, they're entertaining. They are entertaining, right? So just tell everybody where they can find you, whether it's on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, on another planet, just tell them where.
So the YouTube channel is Camp Herman. It's I've actually rebranded it recently, so you'll find it under Camp Herman, but you will hear me mention Project Revelation. It's just me, right? It's just me. But Camp Herman is a collective, and we've got a podcast out there. Go search it on all podcast platforms. I am not a host on there. I'm actually the video director of Camp Herman, and we have a lot in the works that will be coming out concerning that. But really, just if you're a Christian, if you're not a Christian, these topics get to you. They're weird, they're entertaining. But if you are a Christian, I just want you to think twice before we believe some of this stuff. Go to your Bible first and be an expert in that before you're an expert in all this other stuff, because there is a deception coming. We don't know what it's going to be. And there's no more important asset in your life than your relationship with God.
Amen. Well, on that note, guys, make sure that you guys find Mike over there at Camp Herman. Make sure that you subscribe. Also, just a quick announcement, guys. I'm going to be in Las Vegas speaking at a conference July 26th. So if you want more information on that, I'll leave a link in the description below. I'm also going to leave links for you guys to connect with Mike as well. Also, just another shameless plug. Don't forget, my new book, Law of Attraction, A Gateway Drug to Spiritual Heroin, is out. And with that being said, pick up a copy. Leave me a good review on Amazon, because one lady left me like a really mean one, and it's ruining my ratio. So definitely go do that. And God bless. See you on the next one. Tomorrow, I'm interviewing my cousin on my channel. He's like jacked at 50 years old. So we're going to be talking faith and fitness. So do not miss that. Mike, thank you again so much for being here. I appreciate your time. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody in the chat. Shout out to Joe for the super chat. And we will see you guys on the next one.